There was a ridiculous amount of wrestling this weekend. A ridiculous amount. I don't care how big of a sicko you are. There is no way that you watched every single wrestling match that aired this weekend from WWE, AEW, from AAA, from TNA Wrestling, NXT. They all held events this weekend. So what we're going to do with this video is I'm going to list off my top moments from wrestling this weekend. Now, this is going to include both WWE stuff and AEW stuff. I even got one TNA entry and one AAA entry. So we're going to leave our tribalism at the door for this video and just say, hey, this video celebrates wrestling. No matter what company is marketing it, this is the best things that happened in wrestling this weekend. There's no way that we can start out with anything other than Sami Zayn winning the WWE Championship. Now, again, as for these being the best moments of the weekend, it's my personal opinion. Obviously, there are some things that happened that I wasn't a huge fan of, but one thing that I was a huge fan of was Sami Zayn finally winning the WWE title, and I was super glad that it happened in Saudi Arabia, where he is beloved. There are a lot of ride or die Sami Zayn fans in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of ride or die Sami Zayn fans in Montreal, across Canada, across everywhere, really. But he's more of a heel in some places. If you've been listening to Sami Zayn in interviews that he's given while this storyline has gone on, he has compared it to the Bret Hart of 1997 angle a lot, where, hey, in Canada, outside of the United States, Bret Hart is a big baby face, but in the United States, he's a heel. So Sami Zayn has said he's trying to do something similar, where I know I've got my ride or die Sami Zayn fans that are going to be fans of mine no matter what. And I don't think it's as geographically focused for Sami Zayn as it was for Bret Hart, but it was here. Because Sami's never going to be booed in Saudi Arabia. He's seen as their guy. And he provides representation for so many people across the world, not just in Saudi Arabia, not just in Montreal, but for Muslim wrestling fans all over the world. And he's a very passionate person. He's very passionate about the causes that he supports, such as raising money for his Sami for Syria fund. And the way that they've done his character, if you are a ride or die Sami Zayn fan, you can still view him as the babyface, because even though he's kind of whining, complaining about these little things that got in the way of him winning the WWE title, if you're a ride or die Sami Zayn fan, those little things, those all make all the sense in the world. Had those things not happened, Sami Zayn would be the WWE champion. But I also think I really enjoyed Sami Zayn winning the WWE title because it mattered to him. You could tell it mattered to him. And it's this weird thing in wrestling where, yeah, the championships aren't actual accomplishments. But as Dusty Rhodes used to say, and as he apparently told Cody when he was younger, the one thing that's real in this business is the world title. And I think what he meant is, you don't get the world title unless you've accomplished something in wrestling, right? Unless you've amassed a big fan base, you've become very popular, you're involved in a top angle. And so Cody Rhodes getting the title, of course, was confirmation that, hey, you did it. You're a top guy. You're the number one babyface in the company. You're the John Cena, and that's what Cody Rhodes always wanted. I think if you're a Sami Zayn fan, it goes back to the Survivor Series in Montreal where he wrestled Roman Reigns and didn't win. And if you remember, that was part of the great Roman Reigns disappointment tour between WrestleMania 39 and WrestleMania 40, where they had built up so many credible challengers for Roman Reigns. And it seemed like he could lose the title in any of the matches. He went to Clash at the Castle, and everyone thought that Drew McIntyre was going to be Roman Reigns. for the world title, but it didn't happen. They go to Montreal. Everybody thinks Sami Zayn is going to beat Roman Reigns for the world title. It doesn't happen. Roman cheats and retains the title. Then they go to WrestleMania 40, and everybody thinks Cody Rhodes is going to beat Roman Reigns for the world title, and Roman Reigns wins that one as well. So you already had that disappointment in the back of your mind, if you're a ride or die Sami Zayn fan, that there was this chance. Like at that time when Sami Zayn wrestled Roman Reigns at the Survivor Series, and they had done all that storyline of Sami being the honorary Uso, the honorary member of the bloodline, and how popular that angle was. Like Sami Zayn as a member of the bloodline was a hugely popular angle. And with Survivor Series that year being Sami's chance to be the hero of the story, to be the number one babyface, to be the WWE champion, I think I think a lot of fans assumed that Roman was winning, but there were definitely ride or die fans that thought Sami Zayn was going to win it there. Then at the Royal Rumble, Sami Zayn again challenged for the WWE Championship. He didn't win it there either. I thought there was a chance that he would win it at the Royal Rumble because it was in Saudi Arabia as well. Now, according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, I think this was, the plan had been for Sami to win a world championship at WrestleMania 43, which is being held in Saudi Arabia, but the decision was made to move it up. Now, I don't know why the decision was made to move it up, whether it was they just felt they needed some sort of change in the WWE title picture. That might be it. I think that was also the reasoning when Drew McIntyre had a brief run with the WWE title. But it does feel like Cody Rhodes' reign as the top babyface, the WWE champion, had kind of stagnated a little bit, and they just needed something more, something new. And maybe that's why they decided to give the championship to Sami earlier than planned. But I can see why for Sami, this is a big deal. There were plenty of fantastic wrestlers throughout history who never won a world title, including Roddy Piper, Jake the Snake Roberts, but now you can't include Sami Zayn in that list. And I think just having won the WWE Championship at least once will sort of ease that feeling of disappointment, which may be there for some ride or die Sami Zayn fans after WWE had Roman beat Sami at Survivor Series in Montreal. And my second favorite thing that happened in wrestling this week was the Death's Door steel cage match at Forbidden Door. Now, Forbidden Door, like most AEW pay-per-views, was tremendously long. I think this was around 5 hours. I know for a lot of people, that's tough. That's a long amount of time to watch wrestling. Now, one thing that I do, which helps me, is I split it into parts. I don't watch the entire show at once. I tap out at around 10:30 at night, 10:30 at night Eastern, and say, all right, I'm off to bed, and then I'll watch the rest of the stuff in the morning. So AEW pay-per-views have been 2-day events for me for some time. I actually really recommend doing this because some of the best wrestling you will ever see takes place at the end of AEW pay-per-views. And if you're watching it after having already watched 3.5 hours of wrestling, you might not be in the right mind frame to truly appreciate what you're watching. So I watched this steel cage match and the Owen Hart finals in the morning, on Monday morning, and I was fresh. I hadn't had 4 hours of wrestling plus like Slammiversary or whatever in the afternoon. I loved this match. I loved this steel cage match. To me, it reminded me a lot of how WWE does Royal Rumbles, in that you've got multiple different storylines playing out during the course of this match. No storylines are ending, a bunch are continuing, and a few are starting. And so you got that here. You've got, of course, Mark Briscoe and MJF was the main storyline that this match was building, but you also had Konosuke Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada, as well as Kyle Fletcher versus Konosuke Takeshita. But Oh, and Andrade El Idolo turning on the Don Gallas family and MJF and setting up what I'm sure is going to be him challenging MJF for the world title soon. So there was a lot of different things that happened during the match that were very, very cool. The way Andrade turned on MJF and the Don Callis family, I thought was very cool. He did this when MJF went to go hit someone with the ring and Andrade was holding them. Andrade is a really good wrestler. He did this very cool move where he swatted the ring away and then gave the back elbow to MJF, and it just looked so crisp. Andrade, ever since leaving WWE, I don't know what happened, but evidently he decided, hey, I'm going to be an absolutely amazing professional wrestler. And he was a really good professional wrestler before. It's not like anybody, like he was really good. He would have really good matches. But now he's like, I want to see him against like the Will Ospreays, the Kenny Omega, still Kenny Omega in my opinion, but like one of the best in the world, I think is what you can say about Andrade now. And the way that they had him have that F Don Callis, F MJF t-shirt on underneath, I thought that was very cool too. But my absolute 100% favorite moment from this match, anyone my age group will agree with it, Kyle O'Reilly brought out an old school Nintendo, started whacking people with the controllers. That wasn't my favorite thing that he did. He took out a game cartridge, blew on it like you used to have to do when the game would skip on you. He would blow on it, put it back in the console, closed it up, and then hit somebody with it. That was the best spot in professional wrestling this weekend. Okay, so again, these are all just personal opinions. And try not to be tribalistic here. I mean, everybody's going to have what they like and what they don't. But for me, the third best thing that happened in professional wrestling this weekend was the finals of the Women's Owen Hart Cup tournament with Maya World versus Mercedes Moné. So the way that they've handled Maya World through this tournament, I think has been very incredible. Obviously, it's a very sad story. Maya lost her brother at an incredibly young age. I mean, to lose someone at that age, someone that important to you, that's a lot. That's some harsh grief. It's very difficult to deal with grief. And she was a last-minute replacement for Saray, I believe, in the tournament. And, they had her beat Sky Blue, and it was like this feel-good moment thing. Then we get to Collision, and I think a lot of people assumed, okay, she's going to have a great match, but then lose to Athena, because it seems like Athena versus Mercedes Moné is what they want to happen in the Owen Hart Cup finals. Athena and Maya World on Collision had an amazing match, an absolutely amazing match. And I remember thinking at the time, like, okay, well, Athena trained Maya World, right? So they've kind of had time to work on this match. And obviously, it came out really, really, really good. And to me, sent the message like, oh, Maya World's actually good. Because leading up to this, it's not like we'd seen a lot of Maya World. She had been teaming with Hyen, and they would wrestle tag matches and usually lose. So it's not like we had seen a ton of Maya World to get a handle on whether or not she was a good wrestler. But I really noticed in that match with Athena, because there's all these near falls that you buy as the finish. And then Maya World got a surprise pin, and it just all worked. It all worked. They had to have a great match for that upset to come off as a big deal, as something you want to pay attention to, and they did. So, and then you get to the match with Mercedes Moné at Forbidden Door. And I think going into this, I think a lot of people assumed that Moné was going to win, that this entire tournament had been booked for Moné to win the Owen for a second time. And Maya World hadn't even been in the tournament when it first started. Now, I've heard some people say, oh, they thought maybe they would go with Maya World just because of how this has played out. The betting odds didn't seem to line up with that. I just didn't think that they would go this route, that they would go the route of having Maya World win. So this is a bit of a mild criticism of this show because it was an incredible wrestling show. But there's not a sicko on the planet who could not have predicted every single match result on this show. Now, how big of a problem that is, I mean, depends on how important some level of surprise is to you in watching wrestling. One of the things that I really enjoy about when AEW does the Continental Classic every year is you are going to get upsets. And because you know you're going to get upsets, you don't go into every match going, I absolutely know for sure that Kenny Omega is going to beat Zack Sabre Jr. here. Or I absolutely know for sure that Mercedes Moné is going to beat Maya World here, because then the near falls are more exciting. You're just more into the match, etc. Even though I was very confident that Mercedes Moné was going to win this match, there was enough doubt in my head that when Maya World would get a near fall, or when she had Moné locked in a bank statement, it did occur to me, they might have decided, no, we're just going to ride this thing all the way out and go with Maya World versus Thekla for the title. It did occur to me, and it made the match much more exciting. And then it was, you're just into the near falls. You're into the don't tap out, Maya, don't give up. But the way they did it, the way they played it up, that Maya was so close. She was so close to beating someone who many consider the best wrestler in the world. She was so close, but didn't quite get there. And it will give Maya something to strive for in the years that move forward. But even though Mercedes Moné was the winner, even though I think some people thought they might decide to pull an audible and go with Maya World winning here, I think they did enough to show, hey, Maya World is going to be a player here for a long time. She can have these great matches with Athena. She can have these great matches with Mercedes Moné. The crowd is behind her. She's going to be a factor in this division moving forward. And I thought that was great. Okay, and the fourth best thing about wrestling this weekend, I'm going with King Obafemi. Obafemi defeated Jey Uso to win the King of the Ring. And then on Raw, he comes out and it's revealed he's going to be taking on Brock Lesnar in a Hell in a Cell at SummerSlam. He's not challenging for the world titles. And I like how they are playing Obafemi here. I'm not sure about the not having him decide to challenge for a world title. But whatever. Okay, he won the King of the Ring. He's going to take on Brock Lesnar. Hopefully he beats Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. That's what makes sense, since Obafemi is going to be a big star for you for many, many years, and Brock Lesnar is just about retired. We'll see what they do, but that seems to be what makes sense. Now, there's a lot of young up-and-coming wrestlers in WWE that I think can become major stars. None of them are bigger than Obafemi. Obafemi is ready to be a big, big star right now. They need to Goldberg him and just have him run through everybody. Just have him run through everybody until you're ready to build up a big new heel, or you've got some other babyface who's going to make you more money. I don't know. But the crowd loves Obafemi. They go nuts when he comes out. They go nuts for his entrance. They go nuts for his promos. They go nuts for his matches. Obafemi is your guy. I don't think Obafemi should lose another wrestling match until we're like deep into the 2030s. All right, that might be a bit extreme. But what I'm saying is, in storyline, they need to build Obafemi up as an unstoppable force. Like, this is the top guy. Nobody can beat him. And if you're asking me what I think the main event of WrestleMania should be next year, it should be Obafemi beating Roman Reigns. That's just, I just don't know why you would do anything else with a guy who's getting these reactions and who has the kind of presence that Obafemi does. All right, moving to number 5, and we have to go a little bit quicker with these so we get the whole video done. But Will Ospreay winning the men's Owen Hart Cup final ranked in at number 5 for me. It probably would have been a little bit higher because of the match that Ospreay and Swerve had in the main event of Forbidden Door. Obviously, you've got two of the best wrestlers in the world going out pay-per-view main event. They're not gonna leave anything. They're gonna do the absolute most amazing match that they can. But again, going back to my mild criticism, I don't even know if I want to call it a criticism, just something I noticed. There wasn't a sicko on the planet who didn't know that Will Ospreay was going to win this match. Now, so if you're sitting down, you're saying, okay, I'm going to watch Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland have a professional wrestling match where I know Will Ospreay is going to win clean at the end, but I'm just going to pay attention to the moves, pay attention to the story that they tell during the match, and the actual end result, because it's not in question, I'm just not going to focus on that. But some people have a harder time doing that than others, right? So if you get to the end of a 5-hour pay-per-view and it's Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland, you might just go, oh, well, I know Ospreay's winning this. But then the story of the match is that the Death Riders really have taken Ospreay to that next level. So right at the end of the match, all of the Death Riders come out, and it looks like Will Ospreay has nothing left to give in him. But then Ospreay Swerve hits him with a move, and it turns his head towards the Death Riders. He sees the Death Riders. He gets that added motivation. He comes back. He wins the match. And it says to the crowd, this is a new Will Ospreay. This is Will Ospreay with the Death Riders. So we may have seen Ospreay fail to win the world title before, failed to win the Owen Hart Cup before, but that was before he was with the Death Riders. Now he's with the Death Riders. Now he's unstoppable. So we'll see who Ospreay challenges for the world title at All In, because we've got an AEW pay-per-view show before that titled Redemption. And Kenny Omega in his promos has been saying, hey, I want to get to everything to me is the road to redemption. Omega said he wanted to wrestle somebody who many people think is the best in the world in Zack Sabre Jr., or one of, if not the best in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So if I beat him, that moves me one step closer to my goal. So I wonder if we get Kenny Omega versus MJF for the AEW World title at Redemption. And that then puts on the table that it could be Omega versus Ospreay at All In instead of MJF versus Ospreay at All In. We'll just have to see where AEW goes with everything. All right, my 6th favorite thing that happened in wrestling this weekend, and this one's a little polarizing, so you might not like it, but I'm going with Danhausen starting up a feud with Judgment Day. So in the moments leading up to Liv Morgan going out to wrestle Io Sky in the Queen of the Ring finals, she confronted Danhausen about them having paid him $100,000 to, I think they wanted him to curse Oba Femi before Oba Femi and Dominic Mysterio wrestled in the King of the Ring. I might not have that right, but they tried to pay him $100,000 to curse somebody, and it didn't work, and now they want their money back. So Liv Morgan confronts Danhausen at Night of Champions. Danhausen curses her. She goes on to lose to Io Sky. Then on Raw, the Judgment Day trashes Danhausen's sort of room where he's conducting experiments. And anyway, there's this whole thing. It leads to Danhausen costing JD McDonough his match later in the show, but it looks like we're moving into a Danhausen versus Judgment Day program, which very likely is going to play a big role in the Saturday night's main event from Madison Square Garden that's coming up, because that show is going to be built around Danhausen. It's taking place in the New York Knicks Arena. They've already got this storyline where Judgment Day has stolen Danhausen's New York Knicks jersey. And so I think this storyline that we're seeing between Judgment Day and Danhausen, it's all going to culminate at this Saturday night's main event from Madison Square Garden. It's going to be I am like really looking forward to what they do with Danhausen, Judgment Day, the New York Knicks, in front of all those Knicks fans in Madison Square Garden. I'm keeping an eye on this. I think it's going to be one of the more fun things that happens in wrestling over the next few weeks. All right, keeping it moving. The number 7 top thing that happened in wrestling this weekend. I really enjoyed the Thekla versus Stardom feud that took place in the build to Forbidden Door, and I think we'll just keep going forever, as far as I can tell. Now, going back to my very mild complaint that every single match at Forbidden Door was predictable, there was a bit of me that thought Starlight Kid might pull off a bit of an upset here. I thought they might do something where maybe Stardom President Taro Okada does something to cost Thekla the match, and then you've got Starlight Kid has the AEW Women's World title. She brings it to Stardom, and then that sort of continues the Stardom Thekla feud for a while. Evidently, they decided not to go that route. And I guess what they're doing with Thekla versus Stardom, it all depends on what their plans are for the AEW Women's World title at All In. Because now you've got Mercedes Moné is due for a title shot on that show. So who do you want her facing at that event? If you do Thekla, you've got a heel versus heel dynamic, which is not uncommon in AEW. But it doesn't seem like that. Even though they're two of the top stars in the division, just because they're both heels, it feels like you might lose something there, but they definitely still could do it. But one thing I just wanted to say about Thekla in the build-up to all of this is I really realized how much Luna Vachon is in Thekla, and I really appreciate that. Luna Vachon was awesome. Thekla is also awesome. So this Thekla versus Stardom feud has been great. Hopefully it continues, but what happens in the next few weeks really depends on where they're going for All In this summer. All right, my 8th favorite thing that happened in wrestling this week was Jay White returning to AEW. He's been gone for a long time. And this happened at the end of the Cage and Copeland versus the Dogs match, which was won by Cage and Copeland after Jay White's return. And what I liked about this is it's setting up a feud that I think a lot of people want to see, where it's the Dogs, so David Finley's Bullet Club, against Jay White's Bullet Club. So you got the Dogs versus the Bang Bang Gang. I mean, we've been getting it. We've been getting it for the last little while, but now Jay White's back, and Gabe Kidd is dealing with visa issues. So I don't know how long that's going to take, how long it'll take to get Gabe Kidd back in the mix. But apparently, like, Gabe Kidd had attacked Shota Umino at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Dominion. So that was supposed to set up Gabe Kidd versus Umino for Forbidden Door. But because Kidd has visa issues, can't wrestle in the United States, they pivoted and it was Pac versus Shota Umino. So hopefully you can get Gabe Kidd to be part of this soon too. And then you've got the War Dogs versus Jay White's Bullet Club, the Bang Bang Gang, Bullet Club Gold, whatever you want to call it. This is a storyline that's been years in the making, but it's just never worked out. Like, somebody's been injured, somebody's been gone, but everybody's here now, except for Gabe Kidd, but hopefully soon. So that was my 8th top thing in wrestling this week. My 9th top thing in wrestling this weekend took place on Friday night on AAA on Fox. If you have not been following the storyline involving the Psycho Circus, I highly recommend it. Basically, what's been happening is somebody has been attacking the clown. There will be anytime a clown is left alone, the other clowns would then discover them, and they were all beat up. And so with most of the clown, it was down to Murder Clown, Psycho Clown, and Pagano. And everyone was being very suspicious of Pagano. And then Psycho Clown discovers Murder Clown, and he's been beat up, and he finds, I think that it was like a mask belonging to Pagano at the scene. So he's, oh no, this is Pagano. And I love that. This was several weeks back when Psycho Clown discovered Murder Clown being beaten up, but I loved, he said like, no, murder, who would do this? And I was like, yes, who would have a vendetta against Murder Clown? But anyway, this week on AAA on Fox, finally the clowns get to the back, or all the clowns are back and they're like, yeah, I think this must be Pagano. Then they go to the back to confront Pagano and they find out that Pagano has been beat up, and written on blood on the mirror, it says, Psycho, you are next. So who is attacking the clowns? If it's not Pagano, who's attacking the clowns? I don't know. I just think it's kind of a fun story that's been continuing for a while. And just, another example of things that AAA is doing right. They also had a very cool video that aired this week about Perros Del Mal. Of course, they had that big angle on their live show, so we're just waiting until Perros Del Mal show up live again. But that storyline looks like it's going to be a very interesting thing to follow in the next weeks or months. And finally, my 10th favorite thing from wrestling this week. It took a while to get something from TNA. I actually watched TNA Slammiversary, and it's been a grind lately. If you're a TNA fan, it's been a real grind. But they brought in the former Apollo Crews. He was a mystery opponent in the International Championship match against Rich Swann and champion Mustafa Ali. And I was like, if you're TNA and you're operating on somewhat of a limited budget, and you want to bring in somebody who you think can outperform what they're currently worth, I think Apollo Crews is definitely a good pick. The former Uhaa Nation was a huge deal in PWG before he got signed to WWE. Then in NXT, he wowed everybody, but then he got called up to the main roster and did nothing for like a decade. So if you can find the old Uhaa Nation, I think TNA made a really good decision. And those are my top 10 things from wrestling this weekend. Again, just my personal opinion. No tribalism, no whatever. Just trying to celebrate wrestling. Obviously, there were some other things too that just for whatever reason didn't crack my top 10. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins' segment on Raw. For me, the idea of them wrestling at SummerSlam just isn't as exciting to me as the Psycho Circus drama or even what Uhaa Nation is going to do in TNA. And obviously there's other storylines too, and there's ones that you probably think are way better than the Psycho Circus coming to AAA, but that's just wrestling, man. It's entertainment, so it's subjective. So thanks again, everybody. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this video. Click the like button, the subscribe button, the notifications bell, and I'll see you again next video.